Finally, Formula One is well and truly back, and the Australian Grand Prix has resumed its place as the season opener of Formula One's 75th year. We have all the ingredients for an incredible season ahead, and it all starts right here at Albert Park in Melbourne. Welcome to your very first weekend warm-up of the year. And a big welcome to all the fans who've joined behind as well. We were in quite an empty, solitary pit lane for a while, and they've come to join the party. Thanks so much to all of you for joining us wherever you are in the world and whatever time it may be. We are so excited to bring you every second of this Australian Grand Prix opening weekend of 2025. We have former F1 driver turned the best co-commentator in the business, Jolyon Palmer, F1 correspondent Barretto, your lead commentator Alex Jacques, and former head of strategy turned our analyst Ruth Buscombe, all joining me as we bring you all of the action. We'll also have Davide Valsecchi throughout the season as well. We'll have Sam Collins, we'll have Alex Brundle, and we'll have James Hinchcliffe himself joining the team through the year. It's going to be a brilliant, brilliant season. Testing kicked it all off around 2 weeks ago. Jolyon, how have you reflected on testing, what we learned there, or perhaps didn't learn there? Because it's a lot of intrigue, isn't it?
It is. I'm just so excited about this year. I feel like we spent so much of last year thinking 2025 is going to be immense. Hamilton moves to Ferrari, the field tightened up, we got loads of rookies, and now we're here and we've had testing, and we still don't know that much, apart from the fact it's really close and many teams, many drivers can win.
And Lawrence, as well for you, the pecking order has been somewhat talked about and mulled over. There's been plenty of predictions flying around as to what it may be. Do you think it's changed since the first day of testing to the third to now, or where do you see it shaping up for this opening weekend?
No, I think interestingly, talking to drivers and teams today, they feel like what they thought was going to happen and what they thought they saw at testing is where they are at the minute. And I think heading into this weekend, Jolyon talked about it being a really close season. I think it's going to be the closest ever. I think the data showed in testing just how close the top four are, how close the midfield six are, and then how close those two packs are together. So no, I think it's looking into not just this weekend. We're going to have to wait 3 or 4 races to see what the real pecking order is, but it's looking really exciting.
Yeah, Ruth, just coming to you on this, the data that we've got here as well, as our resident data analyst, your best place to take a look at this and what we're seeing. McLaren in the driving seat.
Yes, exactly. That testing, you know, it was advantage McLaren, but Bahrain, we know they go good around Bahrain. We know it's a track that technically, you know, it does lean towards their historical advantage. We come here and actually, you know, it was the boys in red that won last year, even though they didn't have the fastest car. So it is all to play for. And those margins, 3/10, that's absolutely nothing. That's a driver on their good day. That's a good strategy call. That's potentially a shift in the weather.
And we're going to see shifts in the weather because Bahrain testing was really cold. This is now very warm. It was super hot yesterday. It's been cooler today. It's shaping up to be very, very hot on Saturday for qualifying. But then it's going to potentially be, I'm looking at 90% really, chance of rain on race day. That is a spicy weekend for the teams to get their heads around. And also, only 2 of the teams coming into this weekend have retained the same lineup, Alex Jacques, as last season. There have been plenty of changes, haven't there, heading into this season? Sum that up for us.
It's fantastic. We've got a new wave of talent with loads of rookies joining the field. We've got probably the biggest ever Formula One driver transfer in Lewis Hamilton going from Mercedes to Ferrari. And yeah, as you say, the potential of a wet race for the first time to open a season since 2003 set up really nicely.
And look, we've got all of the fans here behind us. How excited are you guys for the first race of the season?
We're here.
That wasn't a lot of excitement. Are you guys looking forward to this? It's been a long winter, or maybe summer, for some of the Australians here without Formula One. Who's going to win? Awesome. Oh, there we go. We got some Kiwis in. Thank you very much indeed. Well, it's not a very good segue from Liam Lawson, but from the man down under here, who is very much a home favourite, it's time to hear from Oscar Piastri.
No one really knows what to expect. Testing went pretty well, but you know, you don't know where everybody sits. I think we're pretty happy with how our test went, but you know, as we've said, Melbourne's a completely different track to Bahrain. The weather's going to be different to Bahrain and different every hour by the look of things. So it's going to be an interesting weekend for sure. But I think hopefully we're expecting to be somewhere up the front. Whether that's right at the pointy end, we'll wait until Saturday. I think I'm confident in what I can do as a driver, and I think last year I think I proved to myself in a decent portion of the year that what I'm capable of, and really took confidence from especially the wins and some of the better races from last year. I think now just trying to do that every race weekend is kind of the goal. So I think with Lando, it's obvious that he's incredibly talented, and it's never going to be easy going up against him. But I'm confident in my own ability to try and prevail this year.
Tell us why you decided to commit to McLaren long term.
It was from both sides, really. So I was already signed up for this year and next, but it felt like just a very natural progression to sign for even longer term. So obviously last year was an incredible year for the team. I think my 2 years at the team have been pretty incredible, starting from where we were when I joined to being constructors champions now. It made a lot of sense in my mind to try and continue that and build with the team. Obviously myself and Lando are both there for a long time now. Andrea is on a long-term contract. Zach, our key technical staff as well. For me it seemed like a no-brainer, and I think it was reciprocated from the team as well.
Congratulations then to Oscar Piastri coming into the opening race of the season, his home race with a brand new multi-year contract under his belt. A no-brainer is what he said. And by all accounts, it's a contract that is worth a fair bit to him and his bank account as well, if we have to believe some of the figures that are flying around. Jolyon, what kind of wonderful problem does this pose for McLaren, though? They now have two drivers who are clearly getting equal weighting within that team, who could both be capable, if McLaren have put together a brilliant winter to maintain that team title, they could both be in contention for a driver's title. How do they balance this out?
I just think it's a great lineup that they've got. I think the two are still harmonious after what happened last year and the papaya rules and team orders, kerfuffles in Budapest, in Monza, and in Qatar as well. But they still get on. I think there's a respect, obviously, with Oscar to Lando, who was the senior member of the team, and who we're all expecting to be the number one at the start of the year. But this is only the number one with how we're expecting it to play out in terms of pace. And that's what we saw last year and the year before. Oscar has to do a big job to get himself in the conversation from the start of this year and not wait till mid-season. And I feel like his home race right now, I feel like this is actually huge for Oscar to start well and assert himself on equal footing.
Well, an Australian has not won a World Championship Australian Grand Prix. He could make history, Lawrence.
Yeah, it feels like Oscar's got all the tools in his toolbox that he needs to really step it on this year. You've got those wins under his belt. And I think he'll really feed off that kind of interest in him here. Obviously, Daniel Ricciardo's not here, so he's the sole Australian on the grid. But I think what's interesting is it was Zach who came to Oscar and asked whether or not he wanted to stay at the team for longer, which shows how much confidence they've got in him. And that might be the missing piece that Oscar needs this year to believe that he can go on to beat Lando in a really tight fight if they have one here.
I'd be astounded if those contract talks didn't begin at the exact moment that suddenly Oscar was like, yeah, I'll play the team role. I think this has been going for a long, long time. It was obvious last year that he'd stepped up to play that role, but he's got to make another step. Let's make no mistake about it. Really great first two seasons in Formula One, but he needs to make another step if he's going to contend all the way through the year.
And I don't think what he did last year was good enough to warrant going to Zach and saying, I'm not going to do team orders. Because we saw how it played out. As it turned out, Lando couldn't take it down to the wire, but Oscar only out-qualified Lando 4 times all year last year. There were some great races. The wins were amazing. There'll be a huge confidence boost. Everyone starts from zero, and he starts on what could be a good McLaren track with a good McLaren car on home soil. But he has to do it on merit. He can't rely on contractual positions to say, no, I'm not moving over. No, I'm doing this. He has to show he can take the fight to Norris as well. And it starts from the first race, because as soon as you get 1 or 2 races where Lando's back in charge, as he was in Abu Dhabi and for a lot of the end of last year, momentum goes with Lando, particularly if McLaren start with the best car, and suddenly it's all the chat is a championship fight for Norris. If Oscar wants to do it, then he has to get in straight away and show that actually he can do it too.
I guess it's a question of where McLaren are putting their priority. Are they just seeking to retain that team title, or do they want to win both, because if you look at the likes of Red Bull, who've obviously won the last 4 consecutively with Max Verstappen, he is abundantly clearly their #1 driver. And that means that for every track they go to that's a Red Bull favourite, of which there have been many in the past, all of the team's efforts are focused on him getting the maximum number of points from that. That may not be the case if you're going with 2 drivers who can win, right?
Well, they obviously want to win both. That's like the best case. Everyone's dreaming of winning the drivers and the constructors at this stage. It's an interesting one because for years we've said Max needs a strong teammate. He needs someone to support him, which he's not had with Pierre Gasly, Alex Albon, Sergio Perez. None of them have been able to really support him in a championship charge. He hasn't needed it in his championship wins. But you felt like when it got close, maybe he would. But actually now we're looking at McLaren with a driver that absolutely could support the other one, whichever way around it is. And you're thinking, maybe this is a bad thing. Maybe they're going to take points off each other. And the whole narrative has kind of shifted to Red Bull having one car out front being a great thing.
There's historical precedent for this. 1986 with the Williams drivers, they took points off each other. They lost out to a McLaren driver in Alain Prost. 2007, Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton took points off each other, led in Ferrari. McLaren are going to have to get on top of that very early on, because if you don't pick a side, you could potentially let Max in even if he doesn't have the fastest car.
But you also can't pick a side too early, otherwise it's completely demoralising for the other guy if they're close enough. And that's why, again, I think Oscar has to show that the sides can't be picked early.
But I think it's fine to have 2 drivers who can fight for the title, just in case one goes off colour, has a bad couple of races. I think McLaren can make that decision much further down the line, because it kind of relies on the fact that Ferrari and Red Bull further back are going to be able to put that pressure on them.
But you're relying on that 3/10 graphic that we saw. I don't think it's going to be 3/10 McLaren have the margin.
Well, Lando says he doesn't think it's going to be either, but I think based on what we've learned already, I think they are going to have a gap on them.
Then they could throw away points by not backing one over the other. If we just don't want to get to the middle part of the year. McLaren don't want to get there, not knowing who's where, and Red Bull come on strong. It's a long season, a lot can change, and they are just going for Max. And if Red Bull come on strong, you know who's going to be the favourite driver. I would imagine still, even though our Liam Lawson fans here will hope different.
Yeah, for sure. And look, McLaren will need to learn from some of the mistakes and the perhaps mishandling of their 2 driver ambitions through last season if they are hoping to claim both titles this year. Max Verstappen may have something to say about that, though, although he admits work to be done for the Red Bull.
What did you learn in testing, particularly that final day when you were in the car the whole time? Is the car a step forward over the car that finished last year?
Yeah, I think naturally there's an improvement, but I think I've said it before. There are still things that we want to improve on and do better. Now, naturally, this is of course also a different track to Bahrain, so that already will feel a bit different to drive the car here. But yeah, step by step.
Are you expecting a tighter season this year compared to last year?
Impossible to know at the moment. I mean, I know that we are not the quickest at the moment, but again, it's a very long season. If you would have asked that question here last year and then at the end of the season again, it would look completely different. So a lot of things can always, change quite quickly in Formula One.
Well, not the quickest at the moment is what Max Verstappen said, but we forget, of course, that at the start of last season he was very much the quickest until he wasn't, didn't win for a huge number of races, but still came away with that title by virtue of the first quarter of the season. So the swings and ebbs and flows of a Formula One season is going to be fascinating to track in this one of the tightest seasons we are going to see. And Max Verstappen will have Liam Lawson alongside him as well. Much debate whether Liam Lawson counts as a rookie. Just quick yes or no from all of you.
I've changed my mind. I actually think no. He's done 2-part seasons. Yeah. That's too much.
It's his first full season. We're agreeing?
Yeah, it's a no. Yeah, I think he's done enough.
I think he would probably not want to be classed as a rookie.
He's done 11 races. Some people don't get 11 races.
Exactly. He's got that F1 experience under his belt. But it's his first time racing here, though, in Formula One. Jolyon, how difficult a task is it to come here to this track, especially with the rain we have forecast as well?
Yeah, well, he did really well in Zandvoort, which was, I believe, a new track for him as well, when it rained, when he jumped in for Daniel Ricciardo that time. So he's got precedent for being thrown in at the deep end. That was in 2023. He's not raced here at all. And he's the only driver in the field. The other rookies have raced here in Junior Formula. He didn't do that in Formula 2. So it's not an easy track. It's really punishing. The barriers are close. There's some high-speed sections. There's a lot of them now as well with the track changes, as Alex Albon found out last year, and Logan Sargent. So it's tough, and I feel like for rookies in the last few years, starting in Bahrain is such a nice chance because you have pre-season testing, you go and chill by the beach, play some paddle, and then come back in a few days' time, and you're on the same track with the same tyre compounds that you've just been pounding around with, and you know your brake points, you know everything. Here, they've got to explore, and for Liam, in a Red Bull, up against Max, the Explorer's going to be tough. He's got a challenge this weekend.
We know what you've been doing all winter then. On the beach, playing
Working
paddle.
hard.
You've been working hard on your paddle though, haven't you?
Working hard on the paddle,
On the
exactly
paddle.
that, yeah.
Ruth, one of the huge, big stories, of course, of last winter was Lewis Hamilton to Ferrari. We're now seeing that come to fruition. What is the atmosphere, the energy around Ferrari and around Lewis Hamilton in that team on the eve of his first race in red?
It's genuinely so amazing. You know, you go into that team and, you know, the people that have kind of spent like the last 10 years having championships kind of like taken from them, suddenly, you know, they're your new best friend. There's a real hubbub, there's a real buzz around about, you know, Lewis's arrival to Ferrari, you know, including his new teammate. Charles is so excited to have that. You know, I think he's personally really excited to get hold of Lewis's telemetry to see that kind of famous braking. And I think it's a really good atmosphere to push each other forward. You know, who's going to come out on top, Charles or Lewis? I don't think anyone really knows at this point. And it's super exciting. Fred looks like the kind of proud dad that he's finally done the biggest transfer deal. And I think they're in a really good position to kind of give it a real good championship fight if they can kind of fix the degradation problems they had in Bahrain.
You make such a good point about who will come out on top between Leclerc and Hamilton, because that's one of the dynamics I'm fascinated to see unfold. Because how do you choose between a prodigal son, a Ferrari, and a 7-time world champ? I don't know if you can in terms of prioritising one or the other. But let's hear it from Lewis Hamilton on the eve of his first race in red.
I think this is very reminiscent probably of my first year. I think for all those years I've gone up and down the paddock looking at and seeing the red garage, and now I'm actually in the red garage. So it's a really nice feeling. I think just always through the years, the pressure that I put on myself has always been 10 times higher than any other pressure that can be put upon me. And I think I've not joined this team and been made to feel any pressure. I have an expectation from myself. I know what I can bring. I know I can deliver. I know what it's going to take to do that, and it's just getting your head down and working away. So I come with a very open mind coming into this weekend. I don't have, it is about getting into a season. It's about getting into a good rhythm. I still, as I said a while ago, still learning this new car that's quite a lot different to what I've driven for the last for all of my previous career, in a sense of the Mercedes power. Coming into Ferrari power, it's something quite new, different vibration, different feel, different way of working. The whole team works completely differently. I was just looking at like the race trace from last year, and it's upside down compared to the previous ones. So I'm like looking at it from what I've. The same for you.
I don't understand.
No, I don't understand it at all. I'm like, so looking at things that you're looking at things all in from a different perspective, and which makes it exciting and challenging. So this is the most exciting period of my life, and so I'm really just enjoying it, and I'm so excited to get in the car tomorrow.
Fascinating stuff there, and what an extraordinary sentiment from him as well, that this is the most exciting period of my life as a 7-time world champion begins his career now with Ferrari. A fascinating press conference there as well with Carlos Sainz, who was replaced by Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari, and then Kimi Antonelli, who replaced, well, Mercedes will tell you he didn't replace. George Russell replaced Lewis Hamilton, and Kimi Antonelli simply the next Mercedes driver. But on to Mercedes, do you believe that testing may have flattered them because it was cooler and we know that car thrives in cool conditions, or do you think they found a way for that car to have a bigger operating window than it has done in the last 3 years, really?
I mean, the conditions on paper were better for Mercedes than they've had, especially given it was Bahrain and it was jacket weather. But I still think the car looked okay out on track, and people have been a little bit more pessimistic after testing, thinking, oh, maybe it was just cold, and we know how Russell dominated in Vegas in the cold. I have hopes that Mercedes are going to be there or thereabouts with Red Bull, with Ferrari, and I don't think McLaren are going to be miles ahead either. The car just looked more balanced. both drivers were attacking. I think Kimi Antonelli is going to be very, very fast and quite spicy to watch. So there's a lot to look forward to there.
And Ruth as well. George is stepping up as team leader. As I said, Mercedes are really keen to say, actually, George is replacing Lewis. Kimi's just the next driver. Let's not say that we've got an 18-year-old replacing a 7-time world champ. George has that pressure on him. Also, Mercedes want the world to know. How do you think George will react to that? And do you think he's learned from perhaps some of the mistakes that he's made previously when under pressure in the last couple of seasons?
I think it's a really big test for George. You know, he was the leader figure, you know, in Williams, but that's a really different situation to being the leader figure in a big team. And, you know, this year it's so critical for Mercedes. That historically, you know, we know they're good at developing power units across the pressure. They've got to make a call fairly on in the season. Are they going for 2025? Because bearing in mind, you have a fixed cost cap, and any money you spend on this year's car, you could also spend it developing next year's car. So if George wants to make a really strong impression, he's got to do it early. They've got to actually be in that championship fight early. Otherwise, if you're Toto, if you're Mercedes, you want to be focused on 2026, the next round of regulations, where on paper, you're the horse that you're probably going to back.
Yeah, for so many teams, there is this compromise and balance, isn't there? Very quickly, Alex, on Kimi Antonelli, I know you've had the joy of commentating on him through F2 over the years. What can we expect from that young rookie, who by all accounts is lightning quick, but also fearless?
He is fearless, he is lightning quick, he's got incredible God-given talent. How quickly can he access it in a consistent way? Can he easily get through Q1 and Q2? Can he do it every single week? It's completely different pressure. When we had the rookie roundtable with you earlier in the week, they were all looking at him and going, well, Kimi's going to have the best season. Kimi's going to have the best season. And that's the expectation from his peers and reality. I tell you what, though, if he gets into the sweet spot, we're going to see some spectacular things from him. Just how quickly is that going to take? Is that a season 3 thing? Is that a season 2 thing? Or can he do it this year?
It's going to be incredible to watch, I think. Right, another Australian on the grid making his debut for a full season is Jacques. Let's hear from him.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm super keen just to get on the track. Been so much build up, a long time since we finished in Abu Dhabi, it feels now. So I'm excited to get to tomorrow, FP1 underway, and enjoy actually driving these race cars.
The elephant in the room. There's been plenty of reporting about Franco's arrival at the team as reserve driver and how you may only have a very short F1 career before you're hopefully not replaced from an Australian point of view. But I'd just like to get your thoughts on, do you feel that extra pressure? Has that been communicated to you? Has that, you know, how do you feel about that, preparing for what could hopefully not be your only home Grand Prix?
Great question. To be honest, you know, kind of similar as Max said before, you know, I haven't been thinking about any of that because, as you all know, you know, I don't. There's no point thinking about rumors or commenting on them. But you know, I have a contract for at least this year, you know, if not more. So you know, I look forward to many home Grand Prix, and the uncertainties, you don't bother worrying about them anyway. I think I have to perform each and every time I'm in the car, regardless if I have one, you know, guy chasing my seat. We actually have 4 now. If you didn't realize, we have 4 reserve drivers. So all 4 of them, not just Franco, probably wants my seat, and if not Pierre's as well. And I wanted their seats while I was reserve driver the last 2 years. So you know, I'm going to enjoy, to be honest, every race as it's my last, because I want to enjoy each and every moment as I'm always in the car.
Great answer there from Jacques.
It really was.
Pretty punchy, from quite a punchy question on day 1 of the season from a fellow Australian to ask about the Franco Colapinto situation. And I mean, Jacques making a really valid point. There are 4 reserve drivers in the wings, and there are always going to be rookies and more experienced drivers who are wanting to get back onto this Formula 1 grid. There will be 2 extra seats, of course, next season with the involvement of Cadillac F1. There have been plenty of names linked to those seats. Which ones stand out to you?
Well, everyone's talking about Colton Herta and the possibility of the IndyCar driver coming over and making his Formula 1 bow. I think he'd need a good IndyCar season to set that up with some momentum, but he's been linked heavily. I love Jack's question, and I love the fact that there's been so much talk about Franco Colapinto anyway, but realistically, all of the drivers in the midfield and lower teams are on that sort of thin ice. He's just got a more extreme version of it. If you don't perform, it doesn't matter who you are, if you're a liability to a team midfield and down, you are liable to not make it. Who would have thought a few years ago that Danny Rick wouldn't be on the grid for this Grand Prix? It doesn't matter who your reputation is, it's just obviously slightly more extreme for our old co-host.
It sucks for him, honestly. Coming here for a debut at his home race as well, to have to even bat those questions away. He hasn't turned a wheel this season in competitive order. We saw him in Abu Dhabi, but
it was a test.
It was a test for him, really. So to have those questions based on nothing, some rumours, and obviously Colapinto came in and did an all right job at Williams last year, but it's just horrible for Jack. The way he shuts them up is to do a good job on track, of course, and literally, if he has a good race this weekend, he won't be having the same question in China, I'm sure.
I think we could all hope that Jack Doohan is given the time and the respect and the grace to
Also,
to
full
get out
reserve drivers is ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
In terms of that midfield then, and you mentioned Williams, they took a step on, we feel, in testing. It was a very smooth pre-season test. Where do you think they're going to sit in this midfield battle? Because it's looking to be so tight.
Yeah, look, I think they were running light in testing. You know, not a show run, but I think they wanted to maximise what they have. I think their target should be P6, maybe an amazing season P5 in the championship. You know, those 4 top teams should be locking them out.
What about Aston Martin, though? Because, you know, we're talking about Alpine and Williams, P5, P6, perhaps. That drops Aston Martin back down to P7. They made that huge jump up to P4, now to P5. They can't use 2025 as simply a transition to get to 26 and the new era, or can they?
To be honest, I just think that that's the way that their season is going to play out. I think they're just going to be focused on 26 sooner rather than later. That's where they can make that leap forward again, and I think that is ultimately where their resource and Adrian Newey's expertise is going to be pointed.
I think we're overlooking Haas as well.
I was about to ask you about Haas.
Yeah.
That's my next question, Jolyon.
Well, I think they could be...
Did you read the running order?
What? No,
We
I
have a
think
running
they could
order?
be.
What?
I think they could be right in there with Williams and Alpine. They didn't do any performance level running in Bahrain testing. They focused on themselves. They did a really good job last year, coming on strong, fighting already with Alpine at the end of the year, and they've got a new lineup. Ocon and Behrman. I like it.
And if it's wet, don't forget, we've got Ocon's experience in the wet and Pierre Gasly. We haven't even mentioned Alpine, the man that lit up the timesheets and you got so excited about in winter testing. Again, especially those early races, these are so critical for those midfield teams to actually get those points that, you know, 2022 with my team in Sauber Alfa Romeo, we only got P6 in the championship because the points we were able to stash at the beginning of the season.
But also, I like Williams from that point of view this year because they've got Sainz alongside Albon. They've now got 2 good shots on a rainy day. I see Sainz being a solid points contender all the time, and of course we already know what Albon can do in that car. So for me, they probably go to the front of that pack because of their lineup.
And 2 Australia specialists, 57 laps on a hard tyre. Alex Albon take a bow, and Sainz won the thing last year.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Racing Bulls and Sauber, we perhaps felt they had a bit of work to do after testing. The cars felt, or certainly looked, like the least comfortable to drive, would you say? How much of a step on are they hoping to make here?
I think they'll be looking to take a leap forward, but fundamentally, Yuki Tsunoda is going to be sky high with motivation, having been passed over for that Red Bull seat. He says he still doesn't understand it. He was proving something last year, trying to keep his seat and not get chucked out of the team from the get-go. I think he'll be highly motivated, even if the car isn't perfect. And as for Sauber, I think it could be a pretty tricky season.
It could be. Of course, Gabriel Bortoletto in that team as well, winning F3 and F2 at the first time of asking, alongside Nico Hülkenberg, a one-lap specialist certainly from last season. But again, a team in transition looking ahead to Audi coming in to the sport in 2026. OK, producer Joe said to mention one more thing, and I've forgotten what it is because I've got a jet-lag brain. Producer Joe? Jonathan Wheatley is team principal of Sauber. There it is. Let's take a look at the schedule while we're all a bit upside down, shall we? Oh, good. Here we go then. We almost got through the whole show without my brain falling out my ears. So, FP1, 12:15 tomorrow, FP2 at 3:45. We move to Saturday for the 3rd hour of running, that's 12:15. And then our pre-qualifying show is 3:30, ahead of the hour of qualifying in the heat, around 36, 37 degrees forecast for Saturday. Post-qualifying show coming immediately after that. And then Sunday, your first race day of the year, the pre-race show at 10 10-2 before 3 p.m. start for the Formula One Louis Vuitton Australian Grand Prix of 2025. It's that time, guys. It's predictions. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Oh, wow, punchy.
Oscar Piastri is going to win his home race. First Australian to ever do it in World Championship history. Lando Norris second, Max Verstappen third.
Someone is rehearsed and prepped for the season.
You said go first. I went first.
Ruth?
Okay, it's going to rain, and Max is going to win. Oscar's going to come second, and Lewis Hamilton is going to be on the podium.
Who is, sorry?
Lewis.
Wow.
P3.
You know what? Something very weird has happened, but I'm so close to agreeing with
Oh my God.
Clip it up and
This
put
is
it on socials.
No indication for the pecking order for the year, but I think in the rain, I could see Max having a bit of a redemption. Start of the year, Red Bull playing down the chances. I think he can win in the wet. I'm going to go Lando, though, second, and then Lewis Hamilton podium for Ferrari in third.
I love it. I actually don't know what I'm going to predict. I think it's going to be a bit of chaos. I'd imagine the likes of Lando, Max. I'm going to say maybe a Charles on the podium as well, but I don't know what happens to Oscar. Oscar's probably up there somewhere. There are too many options. This is our issue for this year.
Yeah.
That will be your issue as well on F1 Fantasy. I obviously won last year. I've got no idea.
Did you win?
I did. I haven't
wish
talked
you'd
about
have
it much.
said, because I think everyone would have really enjoyed it.
I won the F1 TV Presenter League. I did. I've been told to wrap up because apparently I've talked about it too much, but get your teams ready. And that is all from us here in Australia. Big thanks to Jolyon, to Ruth, to Alex, and to Lawrence as well. We'll see you tomorrow for the first free practice of the year. Bye for now.
We're back. I can't do this, seriously. I would like to do the using ball.
This is Formula One.
Are you ready? Lights out.